This will be a Pearly Wickhams. I've got a medium wire, down-eyed wet fly hook in the vise, size 10. And I'm bringing on black thread, laying a neat enough underbody, a smooth underbody. Taking the thread back for the length of the flat part of the hook shank. The thread is a 6/0 Danville's, which is about the same thickness as an 8/0 uni thread. Got a big feather from the back end of a red game cape, taking a bunch of hackle fibres to make a tail. Bring them in. I want the tail to be about the length of the flat part of the hook shank, maybe a wee bit longer. Couple of turns to hold it in place. Now I've got some gold, fine gold wire. I can use gold, silver or copper, and bring the tip of the wire in so the wire lies about the same length as the body of the hook. And I'm going to wrap the thread towards the eye of the hook and make a smooth underbody. I'm keeping the hackle fibres on top of the hook shank, so it's even. You can see the wire beside the fibres, and then I'm going to trim away the butt ends and smooth things out. A couple of turns of thread. Now, pearly tinsel. I'm using a medium pearly tinsel. This is Mirage. It's a very reflective one. I tie in at the front and wrap back. You can tie in at the back and just give one layer, wrap forwards. I use two. It gives you get fewer gaps and it's just smoother. It's just a neat way of doing it. 3 turns holding the tinsel in place there, and then it's about touching turns and really butting turns, I suppose. For the first layer, there is a gap appears there, but that will vanish with the second layer. You can, with this fly, you can vary it by, if you use a coloured thread and then put the pearly tinsel across the coloured thread, it makes a nice effect. If you use a coloured pearly tinsel, nice effect. The original Wickhams Fancy had a gold body, gold tinsel body, and a wing. There was a wingless Wickhams that's very similar to this with a gold body. So the second layer is touching or overlapping turns, and it gives a completely smooth body. Undo the 3 turns holding the first end of the tinsel, and then tie down both ends of the tinsel. Trim away the ends. And then tidy things up. I'm trying to measure the space I have at the front, which is where the head hackle is going to be. I use 2 hackles on this. I'm using both of these are red game cock hackles from a cheap, low-grade genetic cape. I've prepared this one. The fibres are they're a wee bit wider than the gape of the hook. Tie it in, pull it fairly firmly so that I find out, checking to see it won't move. And then I'm going to palmer this down. I'm not going to give extra turns at the head because there is a head hackle going in here. I use, for fishing flies, I would, as often as not, I'd use a hen hackle at the head. I'm not doing it here simply because I want to use as simple as possible for the materials list. So you can see the length of fibres there. I've gone back to the wire, and then the wire crosses, comes up the opposite spiral, and each turn of wire crosses the stem of the feather and ties down the feather, binds down the feather. The wire is what holds the palmered hackle in place. Bring it forward to the thread, sweep everything back, and bring the thread over the wire. Bind it down tightly. And wiggle the wire until it breaks. Don't cut it, don't damage your scissors. And trim away the hackle stem. Trim away the tip of the feather. I'm just cutting the stem of the feather. Hopefully, just cutting the stem of the feather. I've cut a few barbs there as well. Doesn't really matter. Now I'm picking out a second hackle. It's a bit longer than the first one, and I'm tying it in by the tip. You can see this has come from a decent genetic red game hackle. It's about it would be a grade 3 or less, and you can see that because it's a longer hackle and it's back out of the prime area. It's got a black strip up the middle. Doesn't matter. Perfectly good for this purpose. Perfectly good. I've tied it in by the tip. I've pulled the feather to make sure it's in place, and now I've wet my fingers and I'm folding the fibres back to fold the fibres in play into a V, so that they sit naturally back along the hook shank. Gives you a neater head. It gives you a better shape of head, and then I'm making touching turns towards the thread at the eye of the hook. Now, I'm gonna, I don't want anything to be sticking out over the eye, and I don't want to crowd the eye, so I'm going to be careful about how close to the ring of the eye I get with the hackle stem. And one more turn and I'm there. I bring the thread over the stem, trap everything in place with a few turns of thread, and sweep everything back, including the stem, and make the head over the stem. And that traps everything in really well, and it makes absolutely sure that nothing sticks out over the eye of the hook. Trim away the stem, and then I'll whip finish. Just a few turns of thread to make sure that everything's neat and smooth and the knot is secure. Trim off the thread, and I'll finish this with I'll put a dab of varnish on now, and I'd finish this with a few more coats of varnish. Simple fly, really effective fishing fly as it stands. Easy to vary with thread colour, with tinsel colour, with wire colour. Very, very useful fly in a team. That's it. That's the Pearly Wickhams.